a city report that says, in an extreme 2-year drought, the estimated water supply to the city in the second year of that event, according to updated operations model, ... insert is that wasn't there, and then says is 32 million gallons per year under current conditions. And then they go on to say it's great news. But let's scroll up a little, Tom, if you could. I wanted to actually show you what the report actually said, because it doesn't say that it is 32 million gallons per year under current conditions. It says it ranges from 32 million gallons per year under current conditions to a much lower number when we take into account what we know is sort of the minimum that we're going to lose when we protect fish habitat. So, and then you can see at the bottom, it actually explains even more in greater detail peak season shortages associated with this multi-year drought would range between 37 and 43%. So I'm really concerned when I see this, that folks in the community, they read a Desal Alternatives newsletter and they go, oh wow, look, the water department's telling us if we could just hold demand flat, all is well. And they use the language of the, pretending to use the language of the water department. And I want to tell you, that's not what the water department said. So we go to the next one. So here's a letter that Desal Alternatives took a quote from to talk about the so-called exchange that we've been talking about so much. And it pulls out that sentence that SoCal is willing to negotiate transferring some water back to us during droughts. But then the next sentence says, which they didn't tell in their newsletter, is when the city is able to verify the yield estimates for this transfer, then they will talk to us about how much they can supply during the droughts. So it's not something that's immediately available because all that calculation hasn't been done. But again, Desal Alternatives says the council could direct the water department to begin transferring the water to SoCal this winter. Wow, wouldn't that be just cool? That would be so great. I totally would be seduced by that claim. Except that here's the reality check. There's not a pipeline in place for that kind of magnitude of significant water transfer. I put up facetiously here, we could send it there by truck, if that would help. But the reality is there is a pipeline connection, but it's not sufficient to do this job. But wait, that's not even the most important point, because if we did do that water transfer this year, and we did it without any concurrence from the fish regulators, they would be like that on our back saying, you've just destroyed fish habitat. And we're not going to do that. So it's not like we can just do it because the council sits up here and votes and says, oh, let's make the transfer this year. And then there's the question of water rights, which is not at all clear. And again, it's glibly stated that we could just do it, but in fact, it's not at all clear that we could do it in terms of water rights. Could I see the next one, please? But now that was my analysis, but don't take my word for it. John Ricker is recognized as sort of the leader in kind of working on, in this community, on this water transfer idea. And I'm just going to highlight, he wrote quite a long statement about this, but just the first part is, such a water right amendment so we could do this would take 20 years. So they say we could do it this winter, but John Ricker, who really knows about this stuff, says it would take 20 years. And he explicitly points out that the water regulators need to know that we're not going to harm the environment, the habitat, before they would allow us to do this. We know that they're not at all inclined to do that right now. They are breathing down our necks about what we're doing now, and the idea that we would actually take more water out of the system is even more problematic. And I just wanted to point out, just to address another issue that keeps coming up about, oh, well, let's just recharge the groundwater basin in SoCal Creek area. And John Ricker says straight, there it is, the next underlined piece, to accelerate, it's been investigated, but it's just not very feasible there. So just to toss it out like, yeah, it sounds great when we hear it. I want to believe that stuff. But then I look at someone who actually knows about this, and I'm going, well, then maybe we shouldn't be talking about that as a viable idea right now, because people who actually know a lot about this have said it's not viable. So And I just want to, it's hard to resist the last sentence. He says the possibility of this water change is not a near-term solution to the water supply shortage faced by the city and the Soquel Creek Water District, and is not considered an alternative to developing a new and flexible supplemental